My parents tried to break into my apartment with a crowbar after I kicked them out. When I opened the door, what they saw in my hands made them scream, "Break down the door. This is our daughter's apartment." The pounding rattled the hinges, each blow like a sledgehammer against my temples. I stood on the other side, barefoot on the cold tile floor, morning light spilling through my windows like liquid gold. When I finally turned the deadbolt and pulled the door open, their faces went completely white. Mom still gripped the crowbar, her knuckles bone white around the metal. Dad's expression shifted from rage to pure shock in half a heartbeat. And my sister Rebecca, of course she was there, stood behind them wearing that fake concerned look she'd been perfecting since high school. What I held in my hands made them all step backward. It wasn't a weapon, it was a manila folder, thick and official looking. The words "property deed" stamped across the top in bold black letters. Beneath it, bank statements fanned out like a deck of cards, mortgage receipts, payment confirmations, wire transfer records. Every single page bore the same name: Lillian Grace Montgomery. Mom's voice came out strangled. What? What is that? Proof, I said, my voice steadier than my racing heartbeat. Proof that this apartment, this home you've been calling Rebecca's investment property, belongs to me. Every payment, every signature, every double shift I worked to make the down payment. All me. My name is Lillian Montgomery. I'm 29 years old, and I'm a registered nurse at St. Catherine's Medical Center in Chicago. If you think you know how this story ends, keep listening. Because yesterday, at Dad's retirement dinner at the Capitol Grill, they humiliated me in front of 32 relatives. "You're basically just house-sitting, Lillian," Mom had announced over creme brulee, her voice carrying across the entire private dining room. "We're letting you stay there because Rebecca needs someone to maintain the property. It's her investment." Everyone laughed. Aunts, uncles, cousins I hadn't seen in years. They all raised their wine glasses like it was the punchline to a great joke. My sister smiled like she just won the lottery. My throat burned. I sat there, spoon frozen halfway to my mouth, while Rebecca actually had the nerve to wink at me from across the table. So last night at 11:23 p.m., I changed the locks. And this morning when they came to reclaim her property, they learned whose name was actually on every single legal document. Dad stepped forward, rage making his whole body shake. "You stole from your own family." I met his eyes without flinching. "No, Dad. I just stopped being robbed by mine." The silence in that hallway felt thick enough to drown in. I watched Mom lower the crowbar slowly, her perfectly manicured nails going white around the handle. Watched realization crawl across Dad's face like ice spreading across a windshield. Watched Rebecca's perfect Instagram smile crack just slightly at the edges. The door they tried to break down had never really belonged to them at all. Dad's voice came out like breaking glass. "You ungrateful child. We raised you. We gave you everything." I almost laughed. Almost. "You mean everything I paid for?" The words came out quieter than I expected, but they landed like stones in still water. "Like the $5,000 I gave you when I was 23 because you temporarily needed help with the mortgage on your house in Oak Park? Or the night shifts I worked at the hospital so Rebecca could take that 2-month backpacking trip through Europe?" The documents in my hand rustled. Such thin paper to hold so much truth. Mom's face hardened into that expression that used to silence me as a teenager. That "how dare you embarrass us" look that made me swallow my words for years. "You don't speak to us this way, Lillian. We're your parents." "I know exactly who you are," I said softly. "That's why I kept forgiving you long after you stopped deserving it." Behind them, Rebecca finally found her voice. She looked pale, like someone had turned down her brightness setting. "You're making this about money, Lillian. Really? You made it about ownership," I shot back. "I'm just reclaiming what was always mine." The hallway went completely still. Even the elevator's mechanical hum seemed to hold its breath. I moved past them, close enough to smell Mom's dear perfume, the same scent that used to mean safety when I was small, and set the folder on the hall table. "I didn't steal Rebecca's apartment," I said, turning to face them fully now. "Mom, you lied about who bought it. I signed every paper you told me to trust you with. You used my savings, my credit score, my name." I paused. "So please, explain to me one more time how this belongs to Rebecca." Mom's face drained of color like someone had pulled a drain plug. Dad turned toward my sister sharply. "Is that true?" Rebecca's mouth opened, closed, opened again. She offered to help. "It was supposed to be temporary." 6 years isn't temporary," I interrupted. 6 years of you telling everyone you're a real estate mogul while I paid every single bill." The hallway went completely silent except for the faint sound of Mrs. Chen's television through her door. Some morning cooking show where everyone laughed on cue. I took a slow breath, looking at each of them in turn. "You came here ready to break down my door, to call me crazy, to prove some point." I stepped backward into my apartment, my hand on the door frame. But the only thing broken here is your illusion of control. The door clicked shut between us. And for the first time in 6 years, the sound of that lock turning felt like freedom. By evening, my phone wouldn't stop vibrating. First Mom, then Rebecca, then numbers I didn't recognize, relatives crawling out of the woodwork, cousins who'd ignored my existence for 3 years straight. Apparently, word traveled fast when the family doormat finally stopped being their ATM. The first voicemail was Mom's voice, high and wavering like a string about to snap. "Lillian, sweetheart, we didn't mean to upset you. You've always been so sensitive. Please come by tomorrow so we can talk before this gets out of hand." The second message came through colder. Dad's voice like polished steel. "Return those property documents before we involve our lawyers. This is your final warning." The third one was Rebecca. "You think this makes you the hero of your own little story? You're going to regret making us look bad." I poured myself a glass of wine, nothing fancy, just the $12 Sauvignon Blanc from Trader Joe's, and set my phone face down on the counter. The quiet hummed with a new kind of power. My apartment felt different now. Lighter somehow. No one barging in to borrow my laptop. No impromptu family meetings where I got volunteered to cover someone's credit card payment. No Rebecca rearranging my furniture because she had a vision for the space. Just the low hum of the refrigerator, the tick of the wall clock, the slow, steady rhythm of my own heartbeat finally calming down. I wandered to the window and looked out at Chicago's lights bleeding into the twilight. Lake Michigan stretched out like dark glass under a purple sky. For years, I thought peace came after earning forgiveness, after being good enough, quiet enough, generous enough that people finally stopped asking for more. But now I understood something different. Peace comes after you stop performing. There was a knock at the door. Through the peephole, I saw Daniel, my neighbor from 3C. He held a pizza box and wore his usual faded Cubs hoodie. I opened the door. "Hey, you okay?" He shifted the box in his hands. "Heard some intense voices this morning. Wanted to check in." I managed a small smile. "Family drama. But I'm good now." He studied me for a second, then opened the pizza box and held it out. "Family drama usually means you haven't eaten. Take a slice. Deep dish. Extra cheese." I grabbed a piece, the warmth seeping into my fingers. "Thanks." "Listen," Daniel said, leaning against the doorframe. "I don't know what happened, but whatever it was, don't let them guilt you back into chaos. People who really love you don't keep score." Something in my chest loosened. "I won't. I promise." After he left, I leaned against the closed door and whispered to the empty room. "I'm done being everyone's backup plan." Outside, thunder rolled across the lake, deep and distant. Tomorrow I'd go to the bank and make sure every document was filed properly, every loose end tied up. Tonight, I'd sleep with both locks secured, not because I was scared of what could get in, but because I was finally protecting what I'd built. The next morning felt cleaner somehow, like the storm had washed away more than just dust. I made coffee, scrolled through my banking app, and smiled when I saw the confirmation email. Property title fully registered. Lillian G. Montgomery. No cosigners, no parental guarantees. Just my name. 10 minutes later, someone knocked. Mom stood in the hallway wearing yesterday's makeup. Her mascara had run and dried in tiny black rivers down her cheeks. "You're tearing this family apart," she said. "I'm setting boundaries," I replied calmly. "There's a difference." She tried to step inside. I didn't move. "Lillian, we made sacrifices too. You just don't remember." "I remember plenty." My voice came out firmer than I expected. "I remember working doubles at the hospital so Rebecca could take that marketing course in San Francisco. I remember you asking me to stay quiet about paying your Neiman Marcus bill, so Dad wouldn't get upset. I remember covering your car insurance for 9 months because you were between opportunities. Want me to keep going?" Her expression twisted. Half guilt, half fury. "You've always been dramatic. This attitude is going to destroy you." "You mean destroy your access to me?" She looked at the floor. For just a second I almost softened, almost reached out. Then she whispered, "Rebecca's startup is failing. She needs to sell this place to stay afloat. The least you could do is transfer the deed to her name. You don't even need this much space." And there it was. The real reason. "Mom," I said slowly, "you taught me one important lesson. Family only matters when it's convenient for you. So no, I don't need to do anything. And neither of you get to decide what I keep anymore." Her tears didn't move me this time. I'd seen that performance too many times. As she turned to leave, she threw back over her shoulder. "You'll regret this." "Maybe," I said softly. "But at least it'll be my regret, not yours." When the door closed, I realized something crucial. Freedom doesn't always feel triumphant. Sometimes it just feels quiet, solid, earned up. By Wednesday, the quiet started cracking, not from guilt, but from the ripple effects of truth Rebecca had taken to Instagram, posting vague quotes over sunset photos. Family snakes bite the deepest. When blood betrays blood. Her followers, mostly people from our hometown of Naperville, flooded the comments with heart emojis and stay strong queen messages. I read every single one. Each comment was a tiny paper cut, but I didn't bleed anymore. Then my Aunt Helen called. "Sweetheart, what's happening? Everyone's saying you cheated Rebecca out of her property." I exhaled slowly. "Aunt Helen, you know that apartment on Michigan Avenue? I bought it. Every cent from my paycheck. I have the mortgage statements to prove it." She paused. "They're saying you're unstable. That you're making things up because you're jealous." Of course they were. That's what gaslighting sounds like when it's been polished to perfection, clean, concerned, perfectly convincing. That night I printed everything. The deed, 6 years of mortgage statements, bank transfers, payment confirmations. I organized them into a binder with colored tabs. Facts had become my armor. Daniel stopped by while I was labeling the last section. "Building a legal case?" he asked. "More like protecting myself," I said. Clicking the binder rings shut, he smiled. "Good. Because people like that only stop when truth gets louder than lies." Friday afternoon I got a text from Dad. "Family meeting. Sunday, 2 p.m. Mandatory." I stared at the message, waiting for a please that never came. Sunday arrived gray and cold. The kind of Chicago morning where the lake disappeared into clouds. Their house in Oak Park looked smaller than I remembered. The brick facade that used to seem so impressive now just looked ordinary. Worn. Mom answered the door with a forced smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Let's keep this civil, shall we?" Inside, the dining room table gleamed like it had been polished for battle. Rebecca sat at the far end, arms crossed, wearing her power blazer. Dad stood by the window, hands in his pockets. "Glad you could make it," he said without turning around. I set my bag on the empty chair. "What did you want to talk about?" Rebecca leaned forward. "We can settle this quietly, Lillian. Sign over the deed and we'll all pretend this little episode never happened. You can even stay there and rent from me. Family discount." The audacity actually made me laugh. I reached into my bag and pulled out the binder, setting it in the center of the table with a soft thud. "You're right," I said calmly. "Let's settle this." When I flipped open the first page, their faces changed because what they saw wasn't a compromise. It was truth, notarized, stamped, and absolutely final. Dad grabbed the binder, his knuckles going white. This can't be right." "It's legal," I said evenly. "Purchased under my name, paid through my account at First National Bank. Every signature mine. Every dollar mine." He flipped through pages like a man searching for a loophole in reality. Mom sat frozen, eyes darting between me and Rebecca like a trapped animal looking for an exit. "You tricked us," she whispered. "No," I replied. "You underestimated me." Rebecca slammed her hand on the table. "You think some papers make you better than us?" I met her glare without flinching. "No. Just protected." She scoffed. "You've always been jealous of me." I smiled faintly. "Jealous of what exactly? The debt? The failed business ventures? The Instagram facade?" Her jaw clenched. "You've ruined everything. Now everyone's talking about how you turned on your own family." I leaned forward, my voice soft but cutting. "I didn't turn on anyone. I just stopped being your safety net." Mom suddenly stood, her voice trembling. "Lillian, please. We can't afford to lose that property. Rebecca's company needs collateral for a loan if she doesn't get funding in the next 60 days. And there it was again. The emergency. The crisis. The reason I needed to sacrifice. Something inside me went perfectly, completely calm. That's not my problem anymore. Dad rose too, veins pulsing at his temples. "You're selfish, after everything we've done for you." I looked him straight in the eyes. "For 10 years I gave. I paid. I covered. I forgave. You called it love. It was survival." My voice didn't shake. "I'm done surviving." The silence that followed was suffocating. Rebecca broke it with a bitter laugh. "You'll regret this. You're nothing without us." I gathered my binder, stood up, and said quietly, "Then it's a good thing I finally found out who I am." I walked out. Didn't look back at their shocked faces, didn't pause when Mom called my name. Their house, their judgment, their noise, all of it shrank in my rearview mirror as I drove away. For the first time in my life, the road ahead belonged entirely to me. The following week, the fallout spread fast. Rebecca's loan application got denied. Apparently, the bank verified property ownership before approval. When they found out she'd been claiming an asset she didn't own, they flagged her file. Mom sent a long text full of Bible verses about forgiveness and honoring thy parents. Dad's response was simpler. You made your point. Now fix this. Fix this. That was their family motto, wasn't it? Break something, then hand it to me to repair at the coffee shop on Tuesday. I caught my reflection in the glass door. Eyes clearer, shoulders straighter. Someone I barely recognized but was starting to like. Daniel slid into the booth across from me with 2 mugs. You look different. Lighter maybe, I said. Turns out freedom has a specific weight. Or lack of one. That evening, I sat at my desk staring at an email from the Illinois Nurses Association. They wanted me to speak at their conference about work-life balance in healthcare. Apparently my story, the nurse who built a life while everyone told her she was wasting time, had resonated with their members that I almost cried. For years I'd been defined by other people's emergencies, their needs, their crises. Now an opportunity had found me because of my work, my actual work. I hit accept before I could overthink it. The next morning I posted something on Instagram. Just one line. When peace feels like rebellion, you were never really free to begin with. By noon the family group chat exploded again. Mom accused me of airing dirty laundry. Rebecca posted a response story with more sunset quotes. I muted the thread and went back to reviewing patient charts. Daniel came by that evening with cupcakes from the bakery on Clark Street. Celebration food, he grinned. For the woman who finally chose herself. We sat by the window, the city lights reflecting in the glass. Do you ever miss them? He asked softly. I thought about it for a long time. I miss who I hoped they could be. Outside, rain tapped against the window, steady, sure, like the sound of something washing clean. 6 weeks later, I stood on a small stage at the Chicago Convention Center, my hands trembling. Not from fear, from disbelief. The Nurses Association had chosen my presentation, Sustainable Boundaries in High-Stress Careers, as their featured keynote. My slides showed late-night study sessions, hospital breaks, moments stolen from exhaustion to build something that was mine. When I finished, the audience applauded. The sound felt surreal, validation without strings attached. Afterward, a woman from the State Healthcare Commission shook my hand. Your story resonated with so many people. We'd like you to mentor our next cohort. I smiled, feeling something rise in my chest that I hadn't felt since childhood. Pride without apology. That night, driving home through Chicago's glow, windows down, music low, I felt complete as I pulled into my parking spot. A familiar car idled by the curb. My parents got out. Their faces looked smaller somehow, softer. Mom's voice cracked. We just wanted to see you. We heard about your speech. Dad looked at the ground. You did good, Lillian. For a second, I searched their eyes for sincerity. I didn't find much, but maybe enough for someday. I appreciate you coming, I said calmly. But I don't need fixing anymore. I'm good. Mom's tears welled up. Can we start over? I thought about it, really thought about it. Maybe someday, I said gently. When it's not just because you lost control. I walked past them, up the steps to my apartment. Each step a line between past and present. Inside, the lights glowed warm. The air smelled like coffee and vanilla. Daniel texted. Proud of you. Dinner tomorrow? I'm buying. I smiled and typed back. Deal. Outside, their car pulled away slowly, swallowed by the city's rhythm. I exhaled, locking the door behind me, not to keep them out, but to protect the peace I'd built. And that was the moment I finally understood. Freedom isn't when they stop holding you back. It's when you stop holding yourself hostage to their expectations. The door was mine. The home was mine. The future was mine. And for the first time in 29 years, that was enough. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight streaming through my windows, not the harsh kind that jolts you awake, but the soft golden kind that feels like possibility. I made coffee in my kitchen, sat at my table, opened my laptop, and stared at a blank document. For years, I'd written things for other people, care plans for patients, apology texts to family, explanations for why I couldn't give more. Now, for the first time, I was writing something just for me. A letter to the version of myself who used to sit in this same spot, exhausted and hollowed out, wondering if she'd ever be enough. Dear Lillian, I typed. You are enough. You always were. And the people who made you believe otherwise, they were just afraid of what you'd become once you stopped shrinking yourself to fit their expectations. I saved it, closed my laptop, smiled. Because the truth is, some stories don't end with reconciliation or revenge. Some stories end with a woman sitting in her own apartment, drinking her own coffee, living her own life, and realizing that's the happiest ending of all. My phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. Morning. Still on for dinner tonight? I replied. Absolutely. And as I looked around my apartment, my space, my sanctuary, my achievement, I realized something profound. I didn't need my family's approval to know I'd made the right choice. The peace in this room, the steady rhythm of my heartbeat, the absence of that constant, gnawing anxiety, that was all the proof I needed. The door was locked. The title was in my name, and Lillian Montgomery was finally truly home.